In Daniel, we've witnessed some of history's greatest events playing out. The fall of the Babylonian Empire, the meteoric rise of the Medo-Persians, followed by the explosion of the Grecian kingdom of Alexander, then his unexpected death when he was about 33 years of age. We witnessed the division of Alexander's empire into 4 lesser-known dynasties, then the rise of the Iron Kingdom of Rome. All of these events, and many more, were predicted by Daniel under the inspiration of the Spirit of God. Daniel's 100% accurate predictions proved the existence of God, confounding the Bible critic. 2,500 years later, Daniel still stands like a beacon of truth. It declares that our God exists outside of space and time. Our God is omniscient and omnipotent. He knows every detail of our future. We can have 100% confidence in His ability to make good on His promises. God has proven in this book that He's a God who saves and delivers. And if we place our faith in His Son, we'll be saved utterly and eternally. This final chapter of Daniel predicts numerous important events during the time of Antichrist's dominion, in the time just before the second coming. Let's read together from Daniel 12, verse 1. At that time, Michael shall stand up, the great prince who stands watch over the sons of your people. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was, since there was a nation, even to that time. And at that time your people shall be delivered, every one who is found written in the book. It makes more sense to me to place this last chapter division after chapter 11, verse 35, before the jump forward in time from Antiochus to Antichrist. We can make the mistake of separating these events from the previous chapter. Michael will stand as Israel's angelic defender. At that time, the time of the final ruler of the final form of the final kingdom of the times of the Gentiles, the time of Antichrist, the time of the final 7 years of the Daniel 9 prophecy. Many prophecies have been given about this time of horror to come upon the earth. Daniel calls this time a time of trouble. Isaiah calls it God's awesome or strange work. Moses called it the day of their calamity. Jeremiah called it the time of Jacob's trouble. Zephaniah called it the day of wrath, the day of trouble and distress, a day of devastation and desolation, a day of darkness and gloominess, a day of clouds and thick darkness, a day of trumpet and alarm. Paul calls it the wrath to come and the day of the Lord. John calls this day the wrath of the Lamb, the hour of trial and the hour of judgment. And Jesus himself calls this day the great tribulation, such as has not been since the beginning of the world. God has repeatedly warned from Genesis to Revelation that this terrible day is coming. The scene is now well and truly set for this day to commence. Yet many Christians don't believe God and oppose the idea of a great tribulation. Humanity's darkest day could start in a matter of days. The people of Israel will be delivered. A remnant of Israel will be saved. Zechariah 13 verse 8 confirms that only 1/3 of all Jews will live through this 7 years. Verse 2, and many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, some to shame and everlasting contempt. A resurrection will occur at the time of the end of the Great Tribulation. The tribulation saints and the Old Testament saints will resurrect. They'll be raised to enter into the millennial kingdom of Messiah. The church will already have been resurrected prior to the tribulation, those awakened to shame not rising to the conclusion of the millennium. There are 3 separate mass resurrections for humanity. We must study the scriptures to uncover these mysteries and be blessed by this truth. But many Christians are apathetic towards deep scriptural truth. The word is a treasure chest of blessing for those willing to do the work. Verse 3, those who are wise shall shine like the brightness of the firmament, and those who turn many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. Daniel was a soul winner, and these are comforting words for soul winners. Who is wiser than the dedicated gospel sharer? Prophecy isn't for intellectual knowledge, it's for winning souls. Are you being wise with the knowledge God has given you? God wants us to shine like the brightness of the firmament. Start thinking and praying about who you can share the gospel with. This is the good news. Jesus died and rose to save us. He's willing and able to save. He's commissioned us to urgently share the gospel as the time grows short. Verse 4, but you, Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book until the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase. Daniel is told to seal the book until the time of the end. We're now approaching this end time, and the seal to this book is loosening. We can see many of the prophecies fulfilled in history, and we can begin to understand how the unfulfilled prophecies will play out. This time that we now live in is a time of people running to and fro. People travel the world in jet planes. We drive great distances in cars. We live in an era of transportation, just as Daniel predicted for the end state. In 1903, the Wright brothers flew the first powered plane. The first jet-powered aircraft flew in 1939. By 1947, humans had built an aircraft that could fly faster than the speed of sound. In 1961, the Soviets launched the first human into space. In 1969, mankind landed on the moon. The description, many shall run to and fro, describes our modern world perfectly. All this transportation technology came about in the 20th century, a signpost that the rapture is fast approaching. And knowledge shall increase. In 1975, the first personal computer was introduced to the world. Today, most adults carry a smartphone with them almost everywhere they go. The increase in knowledge we've seen in the last 20 years is unprecedented. 90% of all scientists that ever lived are alive today. Never before have we had so many people whose sole purpose of work is to better understand how the world works. Patents and PhDs have exponentially boomed in recent years. GDP numbers and world population figures have also exponentially boomed, confirming a massive spike in knowledge, technology and wealth like never before. It's difficult to wrap our minds around the blistering pace of recent innovation. The rapid, dramatic, widespread access to humanity for travel combined with the meteoric and exponential rise of human knowledge are Daniel's two signposts that we're living in a time very close to the end. Technology, travel, innovation, wealth, Earth's population, education, scientific discovery, medical advancement have all taken off in the last 100 years. For 2,500 years, all these indicators, more or less flatlined. In our lifetime, every one of these indicators has exploded. In 1800, 88% of people were illiterate. Today, only 13% of people are illiterate. This world is undergoing dramatic transformations like never before. We're reaching a point of climax and conclusion predicted by Daniel 2,500 years ago. Verse 5, then I, Daniel, looked, and there stood two others, one on this riverbank, and the other on that riverbank. And one said to the man clothed in linen, who was above the waters of the water, how long shall the fulfillment of these wonders be? There was one angel on each riverbank, each side of the Tigris River, and a man clothed in linen hovering above the water. The man walking on water was the pre-incarnate Christ. Of course it was. Remember back in chapter 10, his waist girded with gold, his face like lightning, eyes like torches of fire, feet like burnished bronze, and the sound of his words like the voice of a multitude. One of the riverbank angels asked Jesus for a timing of these events. Then I heard the man clothed in linen, who was above the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand to heaven, and swore by him who lives forever, that it shall be for a time, times, and half a time. And when the power of the holy people has been completely shattered, all these things shall be finished. Jesus cryptically replies, these events will play out over a time, times, and half a time. We've already learned from our Daniel 7 study that this means 3.5 years, the time of Antichrist's total world domination. The end shall be the point at which the nation Israel is totally brought to its knees. The time of Jacob's trouble is what's needed to have Israel call for their Messiah. Jesus told the Jews, "You will not see me again till you say, 'Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord.'" Hosea the prophet spoke in the first person from Messiah's perspective, saying, "I will return again to my place, till they," that is, the Jewish nation, "till they acknowledge their offence. Then they will seek my face. In their affliction, they will earnestly seek me," Hosea predicted. It's going to take 3.5 years of Antichrist's evil dominion to finally have Israel en masse turn to their Messiah. Verse 8, "Although I heard, I did not understand. Then I said, 'My Lord, what shall be the end of these things?'" Daniel was a witness to this scene, but he didn't understand what the vision meant. Daniel in his day was in a position of incredible privilege. He had more revelation and light available to him than anyone alive at that time. But we Christians, living in this present age, have even greater revelation than Daniel. We have the entire Word of God, including the entire New Testament and all its prophetic revelations. We have the benefit of 2,500 years of history played out, with most of the prophecies in Daniel already fulfilled. Daniel asks, "What shall be the end of these things?" I don't understand this vision, but please just tell me what happens at the very end. Verse 9, "And he said, 'Go your way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end.'" It's only at the time of the end people will be able to fully understand this vision. We're now close to the end, and the details of this prophecy are starting to take form. During the final 3.5 years, full revelation will be clear to the saints at that time. Interestingly, 600 years later, John is told not to seal the words of prophecy. John's unsealed revelation helps to shed light on Daniel's sealed revelation. We now have over 2 millennia of history filling in the gaps in knowledge. Israel is reborn as a nation, yet remain in defiance to the will of God. Israel is ready to rebuild their temple. Israel is the unhealthy focus of the United Nations. The world's in desperate need for a peacemaker to solve our many wars and troubles. Technology, knowledge, military capabilities have all taken off. Global travel is rife. Look at the signs of our very recent times. Things are in place for Antichrist's arrival. Verse 10, "Many shall be purified, made white, and refined, but the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand." This verse is very important. During the final 3.5 years, the saints will fully understand these things, but the wicked will remain totally ignorant of this vision. This final 3.5 years will see a worldwide revival for God like never before. Many shall be purified, but this will only accentuate the dark deeds of the wicked, who will also abound in their wicked deeds, replicating their master's heart. The incredible irony is the greatest spiritual revival in human history will only occur once the church is removed from this earth. Verse 11, "And from the time that the daily sacrifice is taken away, and the abomination of desolation is set up, there shall be 1,290 days. Blessed is he who waits and comes to the 1,335 days." We're given here the day count as to how long the temple will be desolate. 1,290 days on the biblical calendar. This is 3.5 years plus 1 month. Why the additional 1 month is not stated, and therefore we can't be dogmatic. But it's interesting to speculate. Perhaps the 30 extra days is a period of purification. Then a blessing is promised to the one who waits 1,335 days, an additional 45 days. This timing detail is sealed to the time of the end. But again, it's interesting to speculate what occurs at the end of these 45 days. My guess, it's the start of the millennial kingdom. Verse 13, but you go your way till the end, for you shall rest, and will arise to your inheritance at the end of the days. In other words, Daniel, you're going to die, but you'll rise in the last days. Daniel will arise and be alive in the millennial kingdom of Messiah. Daniel desperately longed to see this day, the day when Israel lived in peace and safety, the day when Messiah ruled and justice and peace reigned in the promised land. And although Daniel would die shortly after this vision, Daniel is promised a resurrection to witness God's fulfilled promises for his nation. The book of Daniel ends with death, but more significantly, the book ends with hope, the hope of the godly being resurrected in triumphant blessing and shalom. In Daniel 1, we saw the commencement of the times of the Gentiles when Nebuchadnezzar conquered Judea and Jerusalem. Jerusalem at this point began to be trampled underfoot by the Gentiles. Jesus would later prophesy that Jerusalem would continue to be trampled until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled. From approximately 606 BC until the return of Messiah, Jerusalem will be trampled by Gentiles. In chapter 2, the Babylonian king is given a secret dream of a multi-metallic image. The dream predicted the 4 Gentile kingdoms which would afflict the Jews till their Messiah came. Babylon was the head of gold, followed by the silver arms and chest of Medo-Persia. The bronze belly and side spoke of Greece, followed by Rome part 1, the 2 legs of iron, then Rome part 2, the 10 toes of iron mixed with clay. The stone that strikes the image is Christ, who'll set up his own kingdom to end the times of the Gentiles. In chapter 3, we saw 3 men refusing to bow to a golden image and being cast into a fiery furnace due to their faithfulness, and the 4th man delivering Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego unscathed from the furnace. In chapter 4, who could forget a pride-filled king who refused to heed the warnings of an angel declaring his judgment, then suffering 7 years of madness in order to bring him to his senses. From his state of madness and mental malady, his eyes were opened to the magnificence of his Maker. We saw a king who had experienced the grace of God, and his life was forever changed. In chapter 5, we saw the hand of God writing the doom of a nation on the wall. Mene, mene, tekel upharsin. God was declaring the time of the head of gold is finished. It was time for the silver chest and arms to take power. Then in chapter 6, we have the famous Daniel and the lion's den narrative. In chapter 7, we transition from historic narrative and dive headlong into prophecy. We see in this chapter Daniel's first vision. Daniel sees 4 beasts. The lion speaks of Babylon, the bear of Medo-Persia, the leopard of Greece, the dreadful beast of Rome part 1. The 10 horns is Rome part 2, and the little horn speaks of the coming Antichrist. In chapter 8, Daniel recounts his second vision, where we see the ram and the he-goat. Medo-Persia was the ram, and none could stand before this rampaging beast, till the arrival of the he-goat which spoke of Greece. The notable horn of the he-goat was predictive of Alexander the Great. God even predicts the untimely death of Alexander and the division of Greece into 4 smaller dynasties. We also see another little horn, Antiochus Epiphanes, who prefigures the coming Antichrist. In chapter 9, we saw Daniel's third vision, 490 years of prophecy for the nation Israel. After the completion of the first 483 years, Messiah would die, the temple would be destroyed, the New Testament written, the church age starts and ends. Then the final 7 years completes, where we see the final form of the final kingdom and the times of the Gentiles. Antichrist is revealed, commits the abomination that causes desolation, followed by 3.5 years of hell on earth. In chapter 10, we saw Daniel in fervent prayer for 21 days. This chapter introduces Daniel's fourth and final vision. This chapter very clearly declares to us that angels and demons are engaged in a great spiritual battle. Though we don't see this battle, we very definitely see the effects of this spiritual warfare in the world we live in. In the 11th chapter, we saw detailed prophecies about rulers from Medo-Persia, Greece and Rome, 135 prophecies in all, including prophecies about 5 kings whose names start with A: Alexander, Ahasuerus, Antiochus III, Antiochus Epiphanes, and Antichrist. And the 12th and final chapter we investigated today. The man Daniel is a demonstration to us of the impact that God can have on the world through one righteous man. Daniel was a man totally and uncompromisingly committed to the will of God in his life. He didn't care about external forces pressuring him to drop his standards. And Daniel's life changed the course of history. God used Daniel to change the hearts of great kings. It's exciting to imagine what God would accomplish if only we were completely available for his service. We desperately need people like Daniel, unyielding, fearless, godly, uncompromising, devoted to his word and his will. I pray and trust you've been blessed in this series through Daniel.